Hi, welcome back to another episode of Red Dot Forum Camera Talk. I'm David Farkas. I'm joined by Josh Lehrer.
Hey, everybody.
As always, we've got Jose Rivera producing the show.
Hello, guys.
And unfortunately, today we're missing a key member of our team, who's usually
right.
under the table.
That's right. Enzo is getting groomed.
Yep.
He's
the dog.
The dog. Enzo, who else would that be? He's getting a bath. He's a filthy dog. So.
It could be a human. They're like, what is? Why does he only take a bath?
So no dog. Not that he doesn't really make appearances that much anymore because he just like passed out under the table. But
everyone knows that he's there.
We are dogless
we're
just
dogless.
for this episode. I'll be
dogless.
back. I'll be picking him up tomorrow night.
Yep.
And also Kirsten is not here.
Kirsten is off as well.
Wow. It was just the three of us in the studio today.
It's just us. And it's Peter's birthday, so.
But that was yesterday.
It's still Peter's birthday, technically. It's like birthday weekend.
Oh, I see.
It's a celebration.
Yesterday was Peter's birthday.
So wish Peter a happy birthday, Peter. And so let's kind of dive in here. Today, we are tackling, let's say, some of the more widely held and sometimes controversial topics, right?
Yes.
So we are calling this Leica Fact or Fiction. Do you want to kind of explain what we're going to do here?
Yeah, so we got a lot of great submissions ahead of time. We've kind of aggregated them all together in a list, and we're going to go through, and some will be really quick, and some will be more complicated. Sorry, I was just...
Yeah, it's like...
And essentially what we're going to do is say whether or not the statement is a fact, or is it fiction, or sometimes it'll be somewhere in between.
Somewhere in between, which means it depends.
Yes, as you know, our favorite thing to say, because a lot of it does depend. So anyway,
it does.
Obviously, if you have similar things or other questions that are along the same vein, throw them in the chat. We're not really doing a lot of like regular Q&A stuff this time. It's a little bit different.
Obviously, we have plenty to cover.
We've got a lot to cover, and we've got Ask Us Anything coming up at some point. So do not worry, we will get to everyone's questions eventually. We had the last two shows were M11. We covered a lot of ground there. If you haven't checked them out and you want to learn more about the M11, we have David's review on Red Dot Forum and two plus hour shows dedicated to the M11. So not going to be a lot of M11 talk after me.
There might be some, but that's not the focus. We're going to cover stuff that's been discussed for years, decades, and some just recently. So let's all right, listen.
Well, we just dive right in. I don't think we have any other housekeeping to address news-wise.
I'm going away, but it doesn't.
Unfortunately, not forever. But
not forever. No.
But David will be in Iceland soon. Next, when do you leave?
On Friday.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
exciting.
So he will be not with us for a time. But I don't even know when we're back on air. We'll cover that later.
We'll cover that later.
So let's get started.
Jose,
right? We did all the housekeeping. Let's do it.
All right, let's get started. So first fact or fiction of the day, the night, is shooting a rangefinder is too complicated.
I would say that's fiction.
Fiction. I mean, the M is simple. The M is, that's the whole point of an M camera, right? Is that it is very, very simple in terms of its controls. There's very few buttons, there's very few features. This is, you know, the essentials, right? Leica has boiled down over 60 years of photographic know-how into this tool, which is just a streamlined photographic machine. Do you want to cover why a rangefinder itself isn't really a complicated concept?
Well, the beauty of a rangefinder, the mechanism in use, is it has a very positive conformation. When you have that double image lined up single, you're good, you're sharp. Now, of course, shooting a rangefinder can be hard if your eyesight isn't good, if you're using the incorrect prescription or you don't have the right diopter attached. So certainly there is a variable there, but in terms of the actual operation, if you compare this, let's say we put a rangefinder, an M10 or an M11 next to an SL2, if you were to sort of look at those cameras as a whole, the SL2 is way more complicated. It's way more settings, way more features and focus modes. No focus modes on a rangefinder. You just got your finger in the focus ring. And as you begin to develop that muscle memory about where distances fall on the focus ring and all that, it really becomes quite intuitive. So I would say that is fiction. And we're going to cover a lot more of that kind of stuff going forward.
I would say the caveat to that is there is a learning curve. If you've never shot rangefinder before, it does take a period of adjustment. But once you're used to it, it's very intuitive, very natural. And you know, I know this is trite as all get out, but the camera becomes an extension of you and really just gets out of the way. It's a very natural.
It is a little trite, but it is actually true. I mean, honestly, if you've shot M long enough, you know what David's talking about. So, all right, let's keep going. We got a lot to cover.
And if you have any thoughts about this, drop them in the comments. Be like, no, rangefinder's awful, or rangefinder's the best. Whatever. We'd love to hear what your thoughts are.
Okay. Leica equipment holds its value better than other camera brands.
Oh, that is a controversial topic, but that's a fact.
It is.
I would say if you look at the overall product portfolio and look backwards into the past, yes, there's a significant amount of value retention overall. Some things depreciate faster than others, depending on what it is. I mean, I give an example. You know, if it's M, a lot of those lenses have gone up.
They have.
The S system, this is not a secret, has the most appreciation. That's pretty common with medium format. Although, again, some of that stuff has gone up. Not up from what it costs new, but up from where you know, the prices were. So, you know, there's been fluctuations for sure, but on average, the prices of Leica gear as you use it over time they hold steady or they increase.
Yeah, I mean, let's say we talk to people who have shot with Leica for 20 years and they bought on the cusp of the introduction of all the modern lenses. So the first generation of the aspheric M lenses, like the 35 Cron, the 90 Cron, and all those lenses, for what they paid, they are worth more today by a fair amount than what they paid 20 years ago. Now, that's not a guarantee that what you buy now is going to be worth more later.
Right. But it still depreciates. There's some, I mean, most modern digital technology stuff is depreciating. I'm not saying that there's holding value is one thing, but appreciating is not.
Appreciating is the
certainly
exception.
Some collectible stuff appreciates in value depending on what it is, but we're not talking about that. We're going to say just on average, the cost of ownership of Leica equipment is lower than the cost of ownership of other brands. Not all of them. I mean, I'm not going to speak for every camera and lens ever made, just on average.
But I'll give a specific example. Sure. So, a specific hypothetical example.
Okay.
So let's say that you buy a camera. Let's say you buy a used M camera for $5,000, and you use it for a year. And in a year's time, it depreciates. It's worth $4,000. It's like, oh, that's horrible. It lost 20% of its value. The way that I like to look at it, personally, is okay, so it's $1,000 over a 12-month period of time. That's less than $100 a month for me to use that equipment. What is it, 80-something dollars?
Yeah.
It's $80. That's like a cable bill to use one of these. And if you're building up a collection of lenses, but changing out your bodies, and that's over a year. Let's say that you could have that same amount of depreciation in 2 years. And then suddenly, what is it, $40-something a month to shoot an M camera? Let's say shoot an M10 before upgrading to an M11. That's pretty low in terms of cost of ownership.
Correct.
So I'm going to say that is also a fiction because once you are in the system, it's less expensive to stay in the system and kind of perpetuate that.
Fair. Before we get to the next question, I'll mention one of our few rules, if you will, that we have for every show is
we have a rule?
Well, one thing we do not ever really talk about just because it's too speculative is future products, what's coming next, when's this coming out, because we don't know and we don't want to give information based on information we don't have. So we're super excited, obviously. As you've seen, if you've watched any episode dedicated to a new release, we freak out, but we just don't know what's coming next. So we're not going to get into that speculative area of things. So just FYI. But we love that you're excited. Don't get me wrong.
Stay excited.
And
there is some.
You can ask whatever you want, but I'm just saying in terms of what we're going to dedicate time to,
right.
That's not it.
Right, and I do see some of those comments,
which is fine. Again, I love it. I need people to get excited about Leica yesterday, today.
I think this is the funniest one.
Yes.
Factor Fiction. David will put more nicks on the store copy of the 35 APO.
That's a fact because he's using it the other day, and I can see it already that it's got more nicks on the.
I'm sorry.
In fact, it has way more nicks on the hood.
It does.
You're killing me.
Use the stuff. It's not. Listen, it's not to be like idolized. It's to be used.
You're killing me. Anyway, what's next, Jose?
All right. Building a Leica kit is always expensive.
I mean, we touched on that already, right?
Well, in the Factor Fiction. I mean, expensive is relative, but I'm going to say fiction if we're using cost of ownership as
the metric
for expensive.
Okay, but what if we're talking just straight up dollars?
I would say it depends.
Mm-hmm.
If you get a used, well, if we're talking about an M kit, it can get up there. But a used
SL601,
SL601, which is now they're under 2,000.
They are,
depending on the condition. And the lenses are where it gets a little bit. 24 to 90 pre-owned. I think for under 4,000, you can get into a used SL601. And I'm not saying that's not a lot of money.
Right.
But relative to what that stuff costs new, and the fact that you're buying something that's pretty well depreciated,
you won't lose much more going forward.
Yeah. Again, there's no doubt that for some, like I don't want to speak for anyone specifically, but thousands of dollars is a lot of money for camera gear. But if you can buy it and use it, maybe make some money off of it, and then sell it for very little less than or sometimes more than you paid for it, that to me is inexpensive. The net result is inexpensive.
Yeah, and it's also like we talk about because a lot of these tools are being used to record memories while traveling.
Yeah.
And I know you've mentioned this before, which is let's say you're going to Antarctica and you're spending $15,000 to go to Antarctica.
Yeah.
Like, are you really going to be worried about saving $1,000 on a camera?
Yeah, and there is camera gear you can buy as an investment. I mean, it's just the reality, not just within Leica, but other brands, mostly analog stuff, pretty much exclusively. There has just, when you have a finite supply of something very special and a greater demand than there is supply, that's just going to happen.
Sure.
I'm not recommending specific items. One person who's probably watching the show knows what I'm talking about, but, hi Jeff, but certainly there have been and will continue to be examples of Leica equipment appreciating, but that is not, to me, the reason to buy a Leica to use. When you're buying something as an investment, you're pretty much putting it away or putting it on display. So we spent too much time on this question.
Right, yeah.
Next question, or next whatever, Jose.
Next statement.
Next thingy.
Next thingy.
Next thingy? Okay. The next thing is M lenses need to be calibrated for a specific camera body.
Not usually. How's that?
That's fact and fiction.
It's fact and fiction. Certainly, Leica tolerances, because the body tolerances are very tight and the lens tolerances are very tight. Even if a lens and a body are slightly out of calibration in, let's say, the same direction, maybe you could see it, but much less than, let's say, brand X or Y. And then I would say, specifically with, let's say, S or SL, definitely not. The calibration is so tight out of the factory on those lenses. I mean, maybe like 1 or 2 lenses over however many years in those systems we've seen where a lens is actually out of calibration
Pretty
for
rare.
a particular body. But they are almost dead on. In fact, those lenses, have embedded calibration data chipped in the lens so that when they communicate with the body, they're perfect. With M lenses, I would say, now here's your depends, right? Where does it depend?
Well, if we're getting into the realm of vintage lenses, like this is a 75 Summilux, this is an example of a lens that probably is going, almost definitely, and this one is going in for that, and need a calibration before you pop it onto a digital M. Leica's calibration standards and ability to calibrate lenses has improved over the years, of course. So I know for a fact, having sent a few 75 Luxes in for service, that once they get calibrated, they're very usable in terms of focusing being accurate. They're still not very sharp. That's not a further point. Very usable on a digital M. So vintage lenses, older lenses, a good idea to have them calibrated. Obviously, you can test them first to see. Modern lenses, like I can't, it's extremely rare, extremely rare.
Yeah.
All right, next statement.
There's some good comments coming through about
there's one I want to address specifically. Can you pull up our list really quick, actually, before Jose starts? That right there. It's at the bottom, I think. Number 44. Jose, can you ask number 44? Because there's been some questions about that.
Sure. Leica Camera should make their own sensors.
Yes. To me, that is fiction.
I'm going to say fiction.
For sure.
Yeah.
I'm going to let you take that one first, and I'm going to chime in.
Right. So, well, very few companies are completely vertically integrated. And you have to be on a massive...
companies.
Any company.
Well, fair. Okay.
Any company. Like, okay, so think about this. Apple is one of the most valuable companies in the world. And only in the last 2 years have they started making their own chips for their laptops and desktops. Before that, they used Intel processors. And way before that, they used Motorola processors. But they were a massively large, multi-billion-dollar company that only recently figured out how to make better chips in-house. It's certainly not necessary. Leica has collaborated on the engineering of various sensors over the years, and they do have input, both in terms of the color filter array. The micro lens array are unique to Leica, and those combined with, I would say, the digital image processing and the signal processing are unique to Leica. The actual silicon itself, they're not a fab. They don't have that capability to make chips. I would even say in 2022, nobody has the capability to make chips. We're like, they're shortages everywhere. That's a sore subject. Yes. But there's very few companies both making semiconductor chips, making RAM, making CPUs, and making digital sensors. It's a very, very small, contained group of companies who specialize in that. So what Leica's doing is shopping around and finding the best available technology that they can then modify to their specific needs to extract the most quality. And we're seeing that. We're seeing that with cameras like the M11, like the SL2S, the SL2, the Q2 Monochrom, the Q2, the M10, the M10 Monochrom. These are all phenomenally good sensors, and they're all unique to those cameras to play up to the capabilities that Leica's looking for.
Well said. I would sum it up by saying it doesn't matter, and Leica doesn't say. Meaning, there's people saying, is it a Sony sensor? Is it a Panasonic sensor? Leica has not said, and they will not say. So anyone who says they know otherwise either has leaked information or is speculating. But in the end, it doesn't really matter. Is it? My question is, are the pictures good? If the answer is no, then okay, let's reevaluate. Are the pictures good? The answer is yes. Then sweet, let's shoot.
But keep in mind, even if Leica used a Sony sensor or a Panasonic sensor, or
Kelly's comment is amazing. At the bottom.
Yes, I love that.
That's brilliant. They didn't make their own film either. Oh, I could not. I wish you had just opened with that, Kelly. That's amazing. Oh, yes, well said.
You have earned comment of the night.
That is comment of the night. We only just
wow.
So very, very nice.
How come I couldn't think of that?
I know, right?
Well, man, that's
why we value.
That is good. That is good.
Okay, but I think we've covered that. So let's keep going. Jose, carry on to back. You can go back to the top.
All right. As sensor resolution increases, higher shutter speeds are necessary for sharp photos.
Fact or fiction?
Yes, it's both. It's fact and fiction.
So it depends.
So we were actually hotly debating this subject before this episode.
Yes.
Because if you are pixel peeping to 100% on your computer monitor, yes, you do need slightly faster shutter speeds to get equally sharp pictures to a lower resolution that you're not zoomed in as much, which Josh argued.
Well, my logic is you're not viewing the images the same way.
Right.
It's the same thing that we talked about with the pixel binning functionality on the M11. You could just downsize 60 and its performance is equal or better. So the reality is, in a vacuum, yes, that is a fact. I think that was the way it was phrased, was that you need a higher shutter speed as resolution increases. That is a technical fact. But in practice, it is mostly fiction because of the way you're viewing the images and using the files.
Yes.
Within the boundaries of common sense, obviously.
And there are exceptions to this rule because the SL2S has image stabilization. I have personally handheld that camera down to a third of a second, a quarter second, a half second, a full 1 second exposure, handheld, and it's critically sharp because of that image stabilization. And because, you know, I'm relatively steady and technique and all that. And sometimes just shoot 10 pictures to make sure you get one really sharp one. That being said, let's say we talk about the M11, which is 60 megapixel, no image stabilization, but because the body is so solid and because there's so little in-camera vibration, you can shoot it slower than what you think you might have to, conventional wisdom. It's a fact with an asterisk. How's that? So
yeah, I think that's fair. And I think there's a lot of practical variables, lens choice, focus accuracy, the content of your scene. It's almost the same answer as to how big can I print.
Right.
It's not just about how many megapixels you have. There's more to it than that. And we're going to get into that later.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, what's next?
All right. Leica glass was designed to be shot wide open and renders best at this aperture.
Well, that's a good one for you. Action fiction.
Well, Peter Carba would say, only shoot my lenses wide open. He's, you know, notorious, and we gave him the t-shirt, stop down for what? He loves that.
He's the head of optics at Leica.
Yes, Peter Carba is the head of the optical department at Leica Camera. He is the sixth head of optics at Leica ever. It's one of these, like, you're in it for a lifetime kind of deal. Yeah, if you talk to Peter, he'd be like, only stop down for depth of field, nothing else. Optimal quality, wide open. And as we're increasing the pixel density on sensors, a la the M11 or the SL2, and we're at 47, 60 megapixel range in a full frame camera, diffraction becomes a real issue. So you're actually starting to lose quality as you're getting past 5.6 and towards f8, f11. And it's not a downfall of the camera, it's not a downfall of the lens. It's just physics. As the pixels get smaller, you're encountering diffraction limited resolution sooner. So is it a good thing that Leica lenses are optimized wide open? Yes, because it means that we can use them on continually higher resolution cameras and still extract great quality out of them. That being said, I shoot landscape a lot. I shoot a lot of stuff at f8 because I need depth of field. And I think my images still have the Leica look, even though they're not shot wide open. Having the option to shoot wide open and still get great performance is fantastic. The APO-SLs, or the 75 Noctilux, or the 90 Summilux-M, these are incredible performers wide open. The 35 APO Summicron, the 50 APO Summicron, they're all really, really top-notch in terms of resolving power wide open, and all you are gaining in lenses like those is increased depth of field. You want to add to that?
I mean, yes and no. In terms of do I want to add, I think you summed it up extremely well. I don't really have anything additional to add other than to say what you should do with your equipment in the end is a creative choice.
Right. It's like the question that we get is, what's the best aperture? I don't know.
Yeah. The word...
What's your favorite color?
Well, the word best, which we hear a lot,
yeah,
is very, very subjective in the world of photography.
Absolutely.
Because best could mean a lot of different things.
Yeah.
But carrying on.
All right. Modern era lenses are clinical and too sharp for portraits.
Fiction.
Fiction.
That's
That's a widely held fiction, though.
Yeah, I don't know why. I don't know where that came from, because if you look at images that people have shot with any of these modern lenses, they're amazing.
They are.
I think sometimes people get a little over processing on the software side, and maybe that's where that comes from. But wide open, a lens like the 35 APO is magical. It's not, because it's still a Leica lens. It's not like they're, you know.
I mean, I think one of the first lenses to encounter this particular thing was the 75 APO Summicron. Maybe because they were used to the 75 Summilux after all those years.
I guess that's actually, I'm just going to interrupt you,
Yeah.
because I think what you're about to say is what I agree with, which is
Okay.
it is a relative assessment based on what you're used to.
Sure.
Carry on, sorry.
Right, and that was the only previous 75 to reference. And what do you say about the 75 Summilux?
Yes. It's fun. It's fun. It's not good, but it's fun. There.
It's pretty.
Yeah.
It's pretty, but it is the furthest thing from clinical that you could get, because it's a glowy, kind of almost Noctilux-y look. And the 75 APO Summicron is that, we'll call it the generation 1.5 modern vintage Leica lens, right? Would that be accurate? It's sort of the second class of modern lenses in the early 2000s. So, I mean, it's a pretty lens. Like, the bokeh is really nice. It focuses really close. I think it gives really creamy, beautiful skin tones. I've used it for portraiture, and it looks fantastic.
There you go.
And I know a big fan of it who actually submitted this comment, which is Jonah Slack. And him and I have had these conversations. He's like, what is it? Clinical? It's not clinical. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous. So this one's for Jonah. I agree with you, because I have shot that lens. I know you've shot that lens, and it's very pretty. There's no two ways around it. So I don't believe that it's clinical. And you could take the 75 Noctilux, which is one of the highest critical performing lenses that Leica makes in the M line, and it is gorgeous, right?
Yes.
You use that one a lot.
Oh my goodness, that lens is incredible. Like, crazy sharp, but looks so unique simultaneously. So, all right, I think you really did a good job on that. You're crushing it right now.
Fiction.
Let's keep going.
Fiction.
Let's keep going. We got like 47 more to cover. So,
Noctilux lenses are always the sharpest of their respective focal length.
All you.
Noctilux lenses are always the sharpest of their respective focal lengths. That is fiction. That is fiction. The 75 Noctilux is the sharpest 75.
Right.
The 50 Noctilux is not even it's like the fourth sharpest 50.
Yep.
I'm not using any other metric here. I'm just talking about sharpness. No, Noctilux does not equal sharpness. Noctilux equals look and rendering and magic. That's it.
What about?
We have a whole episode about Noctilux.
We
you should
do.
watch it.
We do. And there was some confusion, because when Leica reissued last year the 51.2 Noctilux aspheric, everyone kind of, well, not everyone, but a lot of people said, oh my gosh, a new Noctilux. This has to be sharper.
Yeah, and because it had the word aspheric in it. So
Because it had the word aspheric. But no. The 51.2 is not as high performing as the 50.95, and not because the 0.95 is faster. It's because the 0.95 is, 40 some odd years newer. Actually, almost exactly 40 years, 2006 to 1966. So 40 years newer technology. It's just, the 1.2 is a reissue from 1966. The 0.95 was released in...
You should watch the Noctilux show, not right now, but when we're done, because we have to keep going.
We got to keep going.
Now say what's next.
All right. Leica's APO Summicron SL lenses are the highest performing they've ever made for any system.
That is a fact.
Fact. Easy.
Fact.
Easy fact.
Easy fact.
There is no example at any of the 5 focal lengths that an APO SL lens is made in, 28, 35, 50, 75, 90. There is no focal length that matches one of these 5 in any line of any part of Leica's product portfolio that performs higher than the APO SL lenses. And this isn't conjecture or speculation. I've tested this over and over and over again. I've seen customer images. I've seen coworker images. These David's images.
I have, and I can say I have shot these.
Yes.
On the SL2 in 187 megapixel multi-shot, and they are critically sharp right into the very corners, without question, and noticeably more so than other lenses, which I have shot also.
Yeah, they are unbeatable. That's just what it comes down to. I'm not saying that means they're the best. Because again, the best is subjective.
But they are the highest performing.
But when it comes to performance, wide open, stop down, and everywhere in between, they are the best.
They are.
That's it.
And a relative bargain.
And they're weather sealed, and they're autofocus, and they focus super close with a very high reproduction ratio, and they're readily available.
I mentioned it's half the price of this.
It's like there's almost.
Almost half the price.
Whatever. I mean, I don't want to get too salesy, but basically they continue to be this almost like underdogs.
Yeah.
Even though they've been out for a number of years.
It's like the biggest not secret in the world. And yet,
Yeah, and I've tested them against M lenses, S lenses, R lenses, TL lenses, other manufacturers' lenses. I mean, they are so good. It's just a fact. You can say whatever you want, and that's fine, because you know what? It's all about what you like. But in terms of performance,
And I should say, and they have pretty bokeh.
That's true, and they're beautiful. If you have not tried one, I've said this before, if you have not tried
Try one.
an Apple SL lens, go to your local Leica store, come to see us, whatever, and try one out. Wide open. It's amazing. Next.
SL zooms are as good as M prime lenses.
True.
No, that's not the show.
Wait, what?
It's fact or fiction.
Fact.
Oh, you know how long I've worked on this, and now he's just throwing
That's a fact.
Yes.
The SL zooms are what I like to say, Leica prime lens quality at every focal length. And I have always been a prime lens guy, like forever. Zooms have always been a compromise in terms of flexibility at the expense of performance. Until I used the 24-90 SL on the first SL 601. I was blown away because 24, 28, 35, 50, 75, 90, all as good or better than my M lenses. It's verifiable fact. And that has held true on the SL2 as we've increased from 24 to 47 megapixels. It's become even more of a fact. That lens is great. And the 90 to 280, I thought that I had the best tele lenses with the 180 APO-M R. Yep, 180 APO-M R, the 100 APO macro Elmarit R 2.8. I have that as well. And the 280, we also tested against the 280 F4 APO tele, what is it?
Apple Tele F. Apple Tele F. Apple Tele, I can't even.
There.
A lot of letters.
The 280 F4 APO R, okay? It is APO Telet R. And the 90 to 280 crushes all of them in terms of resolving power, sharpness, detail, and it's so much easier to just tap for autofocus, and it nails it.
Yeah.
So yes, the SL zooms are as good or better than, I would say, M or R lenses. But they are not as good as the SL APO Summicron SL primes. There.
Well said.
Fact.
What's next?
All right. Leica makes the best lenses, but not digital bodies. I'm better off using M lenses on a non-Leica camera.
Your turn.
That's fiction.
Fiction.
I mean, keep in mind, Leica makes M lenses, right?
Yes.
So Leica knows how M lenses work. Leica makes cameras that take M lenses. So they know how the M lenses should work on their cameras.
And it takes us back to the sensor conversation.
Yes.
Even though Leica doesn't make their sensors in-house, which we don't think they should, they do specify and engineer the microlens array that is specific and unique to Leica. And I remember on the original SL, you remember what they said, that an SL body was the second best camera body to use M lenses on.
Lenses, yes. And that's
like,
true.
oh, that's true.
Ways, yeah.
Right. So they had architected it knowing full well, because as soon as that camera came out in October 2015, when the SL system was released, it launched already with the M adapter, of course, which was launched with the TL and the CL. But it was available from day one, and they always engineered the SL body to take M lenses. I can tell you many years have gone by where people tried to put M lenses onto non-Leica bodies using all sorts of adapters and kludges and whatever. And there was, I mean, I've even seen forums and discussions where people were like, oh, well, this lens is garbage. Look at it. It's smeary into the corners and it's blue and purple. It's like, try it on a Leica camera. And amazingly, it's perfect because those third-party cameras, kind of to build on Josh's point, they weren't engineered with non-retrofocus lenses in mind, M lenses with a high incidence angle. Almost all those mirrorless cameras from other manufacturers are designed purely to work with 100% telecentric lenses, which means even their wides, it directs the light rays to be straight, not come at an angle. They're not meant for it. So when you put anything wider than a 50, you're going to sacrifice image quality using an M lens on a non-Leica body. So do yourself a favor, get an M body.
I want to throw in a user one here, which I just to poke the bear a little bit. Mark says M lenses are best on M bodies. Fact or fiction? I'm going to say fiction, in my opinion. Not 100% of the time. Because what I have found, and I've talked about this before, vintage lenses, complicated lenses, the 1.2 Noctilux, modern iteration and previous one, anything like that.
75 Noctilux.
I find personally that my images made with those particular lenses are on average stronger on an SL2 or an SL2S than they are on an M body because I'm seeing through the lens in real time with a very high resolution viewfinder experience with stabilization. And I'm able to create my images factoring in the way the lens performs in its unique rendering in real time, which yes, you'd get on an M with a VisaFlex, but that's really more of a compromise solution when you compare it to what the SL2 and SL2S finders. If you don't have an SL2S, it's the next best thing.
Right. Now, of course, with the M11, and we covered this in our previous episodes, the M11 has gotten us a lot closer because you have the new 3.68 megapixel OLED EVF, VisaFlex 2, and you have stabilized live view at 100%, which really helps a lot in those lenses like the 75 Noctilux or a 90 Summilux. But you still have a 5.7 something megapixel.
I know it's a controversial statement, and I know the word best is subjective.
Best is tough. Yeah. But what you like.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What's next, Jose?
All right. Leica digital technology is not up to date.
I would say fiction. For me, I'll sum it up by saying grab an SL Type 601, which is 7 years old, and it feels like it came out last year. So
it's fair. Yeah, that's true. I mean, yeah, Leica tends to be more patient in terms of waiting until technology is mature enough to adopt it and roll it into their cameras because they want to make sure they work for the long term. An original generation Q116 came out in 2015. Again, 7 years ago. Feels very responsive.
So good.
Very fast.
So good.
Great quality. Same with an SL601. And when you look at the technology that's in the M11 or the SL2, these are cutting edge in terms of technology. And yet, and I've talked about this both in the review, we talked about it in our previous episode, they managed to take the most advanced digital technology and put it into the simplest, most straightforward, easy to use system. In, what goes around it.
Yeah.
Because it's not just the digital technology, it's also that user experience. Simple menus, easily customizable function buttons, exposure controls right at your fingertips. That ergonomic experience, I think, is far and away way more advanced in terms of their design than any other manufacturer, while not being at all behind in terms of digital technology.
Well said. What's next?
What do we got?
To judge image quality, you need to evaluate what the raw file looks like straight out of camera.
I have to take this because you're going to go on for too long. Because as David has harped on for the 50 episodes, that is fiction. Image processing, I would say raw image processing in a computer of some type, in a computer device, is a critical and integral part of the imaging pipeline. And is a huge factor, almost as significant as lens choice, in how your image is going to look at the end of the day, when you're ready to share it, print it, whatever.
Because, and I'll add,
yes,
because part of what makes a good file isn't what comes out of the camera. Because, if you put it in a different program, it's going to look different. It has nothing to do with, there is no straight out of camera, which we've talked about. And I won't harp on it, I promise.
Please don't.
But how malleable the files are and how easy it is to manipulate that file to suit your taste and your vision, because you're not stuck with the final result. part of that creative process. Just like shooting film and printing in a darkroom, why use contrast filters? Why use different developers? Why use different paper? Like, if there's one way to do it, why don't you just take it out of camera?
Right.
Because that darkroom process, that other side of photography, the post-processing side, the developing side, has been so integral for 100 years.
And I think it's important to differentiate between post-processing to get you to the result that expresses yourself creatively, and post-processing to make something surreal, which again isn't wrong either. But what we're talking about specifically in our case is not surreal or super real, but to make it look like the way you pictured it in your head when you took the photo to begin with.
The best version of reality.
That's right.
Yep.
We're going to stop because we would never start.
This topic could go on for an hour.
Next thingy.
Thingy? Okay.
Ooh,
Next
yeah,
thingy.
Older Leica lenses don't perform well on high-resolution cameras like the M11 or SL2.
I'm gonna let you take that one again.
That's a fact compared to a modern lens. Now,
what's better though? What's better?
well, there is no better because it depends on your preference. I, as you guys know, if you watch the show, love like 2-generation old M lenses on SL cameras.
Yeah.
I'm going to be shooting with some tomorrow when I'm at a car show. But I'm understanding that I'm not getting the highest performance. I could bring a 35 APO, 50 APO, 75 Noctilux, 90 Summilux, whatever, and I may bring one of those, but I want something older because I like the way it looks. But I'm definitely not getting my objective money's worth, if you will, out of the sensor.
Yeah. So let's say you put a version 2 50 Summicron. You know, what could someone expect out of something like that? Or,
Sure.
you know, an 8-element Summicron, whatever. You know?
Well, the biggest thing you're going to notice is how fast the performance falls off from the center in terms of sharpness, contrast, the way the bokeh just kind of starts to get all squiggly. You know, most lenses in the center are pretty good, some exceptions, even older ones. But as soon as you get off center, more vignetting, chromatic aberration, which can be negated by just using it in a monochrome camera.
Sure.
That's not a problem. Also build quality, durability. With some older lenses, filtration. They either take like weird hood-mounted filters or they remote, whatever, weird sizes. So there's a lot of compromises you do have to make when it comes to objective, measurable performance. But a lot of times I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
I love a lot of older lenses and the way that they render. And it's very hard to get that effect in post-production.
And I will say that with more resolution and more detail, you're capturing more of that look and feel of the vintage lens. So it's more, let's say it's just more to play with. And I think it exposes the full character of the lens more so than lower resolution. In fact, we saw this using the pixel binning on the M11, that the vintage lenses didn't perform any better on the 36 megapixel mode versus the 60 megapixel mode.
Yep, there you go. So use what you like. That simple. Next thingy.
There are a lot of comments.
I know, people are going crazy. Oh, there about eggs in there or something?
I think they want you to move over though. There you go.
Really here? That's,
No, not all the way.
we've discussed this already. This little screen is too small for me.
All right.
This is like pre-HD.
That's right.
Focal length doesn't matter if you have enough pixels to crop.
That's fiction.
It's fiction. Yeah, it's fiction.
Because of course focal length matters because
It changes perspective.
it changes the way your picture looks. If you only care about cropping, that's fine, but don't crop a 28 to a 75 field of view and think it's going to look like you shot it with a 75.
It's not.
All the pixels in the world aren't going to change that.
Because it's still a 28 that's cropped in. The same way, look, we're cropped in right now, you know, instead of the full frame.
There you go.
It hasn't changed the focal length. We're shooting the same exact focal length. We're just cropping out
I
the
don't
outside.
want to not cropping because when you're being weight conscious and you just want to get some extra reach, that's totally fine. But it's not going to look like you took it with a longer lens.
So you can replicate field of view,
Yes.
but you cannot replicate the
Compression?
compression, the look and feel, because a 50 cropped in is not going to look like a 90 shot at the same distance. It's not.
There you go.
And likewise, likewise,
okay.
a 21 is going to have more wrap around than a 28. Even if you crop in the 21 to 28, it's not going to look the same. It's going to have more distortion. It's going to have a feel like a 21, not a 28.
There you go.
So it works but at the short end and the long end. Is it convenient to have more megapixels and crop?
Oh, yeah.
It's fantastic.
Especially for perspective control and correction. Very, very convenient. Next thing.
You need to protect your lens with a UV filter.
It depends.
Where are you going?
So we get this question all the time since we work at a camera store. There are two downsides to using a UV filter, and I'm assuming the UV filter is high quality, so I'm not going to use a bad filter as a downside. Number one is the added cost. That's a factor. Number two is if you're using other filters, polarizers, neutral density, color filters, etc., you'll have to remove the UV filter every time you want to attach one of those creative filters because you don't want to stack them on top of a UV filter.
Right.
Those are the two downsides to using a high quality UV filter. Otherwise, if you're not using creative filters or not using them often and you don't mind the added expense, it will protect the front of your lens from stuff.
And especially if you have older vintage lenses with really soft coatings, you absolutely, like 100% recommend putting a modern, good quality UV or clear filter in front of your lens. Because over time, if you start, cleaning just with even a gentle lens cloth, it's going to rub that finish off, and there's no way to put it back on. So if you have, your 1950s, 1960s lens, definitely put a filter on it, because then you can just clean the filter.
Correct.
And you don't have to worry about it, and you're protecting the lens underneath. And a lot of the modern SL, S, even M lenses, the modern coatings are so much more durable and hard. It's pretty hard to scratch a Leica lens.
Well, for most people, not for
most
you.
people. I haven't scratched very many, and it's very difficult.
Notice how he says he's never scratched one at all.
It's very difficult. It's very difficult.
And you have love finds a way, David.
Or you can, use, for instance, what's really hard to scratch a 35 APO, for instance, is, or any of these, is they have really substantial screw-on metal shades.
Yeah, that's true.
So they become a physical barrier. So if you put it down, the odds of getting an object in here is much less than if you have a fully exposed front element.
There we go.
So a physical barrier works better than filters.
Next thingy.
Next thingy. I love thingies.
Next thing he says, you should always use a wide angle lens for landscape and a telephoto lens for portraits.
That's a fiction. I often use telephoto for landscape. I love it because of that compression and stacking things together.
And we had some great contributions to our Q image request, which is a 28 with portraits that were awesome.
Absolutely.
So that's fiction.
I have shot a lot of environmental portraiture with 35. I love the 35 for portraiture. So I think we have to get maybe the classic definition of portraiture where you're thinking of head and shoulders. Yeah, I think a 75, which is a moderate telefocal length, works great. But so does a 50. So does a 90 if you want to get a little further away. And that's the trade-off. If you're shooting with a telephoto lens, you're further away, further removed from your subject, which can kind of disconnect you from that. Disconnect you from, I don't know, like
deconnect? Both.
Disconnect, I don't know. It can basically, let's say, it decreases the intimacy with your subject, would be the more accurate way to say it. And wide angle is going to bring you closer in. We worked with a 4-time Pulitzer Prize-winning photojournalist, and almost all of his prize-winning work was shot with a 21, 24, or 28, sometimes 35, from this far away. Within 1 meter. He was shooting these very intimate portraits with a 28 millimeter because you feel involved and, like you're actually in this environment. So don't think that you have to shoot a portrait with a 75 or a 90 and you have to shoot a landscape with a 21 because photography is all about choices and individual vision.
Don't lock yourself in. You'll miss it out.
Right. And as a good exercise, if you've always shot, 21 or 28 for landscape, go out with a 90.
There you go.
And if you ever shot a portrait with a 75, shoot with a 28. See what happens.
Next thingy.
Go for it.
Next thing he says, a Q camera isn't a real Leica.
Oh. Well, as opposed to being a fake Leica, that is fiction. Of course, the Q is a real Leica. I mean, I guess we have to just determine the definition of a real Leica, which is a camera made by the company Leica Camera AG.
Yes.
In which case, yes, the Q is a real Leica.
Q is absolutely
If you want to
real.
say it's only real if it's made in Germany, it's still
made in Germany, yeah.
It's only real if it's full frame, still. So yes, the Q is an insanely capable camera with a lens, a 28 lens that performs up there with any 28M lens pretty much in terms of performance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sensor technology, I mean, and a Q2 monochrome, for instance, is almost neck and neck with an M10 monochrome. Really, like within a half a stop, it's a stop. And yes, just because you can't change the lens, just because it feels like a glorified, fancy, compact camera, it shoots amazing pictures. So that's why one comes with me all the time.
Well said.
Love it.
Let's keep going. What's next?
Oh, I like this. Here, a Q camera is an unreal Leica. Well said. Well said.
Okay.
Well said. I'll take it.
I'll take it. Next.
Okay. The SL2S has better video quality than the SL2.
That is a fact.
If you're watching this show, that's a fact.
It's a fact.
Shooting on the SL2S.
Yep. A lot of people ask us, they like our live stream quality. And again, I'm just going to reiterate, we use the SL2S with the SL zooms. We've got a 24 to 90 right here, and we've got a 90 to 280 up there for the close-ups, and two SL2Ss, and they are phenomenal. It's really upped our game, and we don't have to blind ourselves because we can shoot at 1600 ISO without having to, crank the lights. And the image quality at 1600 on the SL2S is better than 400 ISO was on the SL2. SL2 is great if you have a lot of light. SL2S is still better, I think, for video just overall.
Where are we? Pull up Illustrator, Rick. I just want to see where our natural break's going to be. What number are we on, Jose?
20.
No, we're not even, not even halfway.
We're almost halfway.
Oh my gosh, we are.
Oh, no, we're doing good. We're doing good. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just doing a little bit of status check here. Okay.
Little gut check.
Let's like go through a couple quicker ones because I
go.
have some deeper stuff to do. So
Okay. 24 megapixels isn't enough if you want to print big.
That is fiction.
Fiction.
I have many 2 foot by 3 foot prints that say otherwise. People are really hard pressed to see the difference. And it's funny because I have had that comment so many times. And this was, let's say, before the M11, before the M10R even, when the M10 lineup was just 24 megapixels for an M10, M10P, and the M246, all 24 megapixel. And in fact, the M246, I still have it, a 24 by 36 inch, which is 2 foot by 3 foot, print of a still life setup I did during my ISO testing. And I was like, I want to see what I can do with this. And I couldn't really print much bigger than that. So what we did is just took a crop and enlarged the crop to what would have been 40 by 60 inches and printed that out. Perfect. And I don't mean like perfect across the room, perfect with your nose
like,
in the print.
Yeah, like as pixel peeping as you want to get.
Like nose in print distance, 40 by 60 off a 24 megapixel camera.
Let me say it this way, and I've said this before. The maximum possible size you can print a given image, if there's a list of metrics that you need to check off to determine that number, that maximum size, resolution is on that list. It is not the only thing on that list. It is not the most important thing on that list. Although maybe some of that stuff is linear at the top.
Well, what lens did I shoot that image with on the Monochrom?
50 APO.
I shot it with the 50 APO,
Yeah.
which is, able to fully resolve all of those pixels. And it was critically focused. It was on a tripod.
What I would say too is I don't know if we have any on the books now, but we've done a number of printing workshops with Richard Sexton in New Orleans, who's an unbelievable fine art printer. And if you want to really understand what's on that list and how to prioritize it to make a big giant print, take a workshop with him or get some of his prints and you will understand.
Yeah.
I mean, because we like to print, but he is a printer. That's the difference.
So, because I kind of left my story hanging.
Sorry.
I had a lot of people come and say, oh, it's just 24 megapixel. I like to print big. I'm like, oh, well, how big do you like to print? I'm like, oh, like sometimes 11 by 17. It's like, I was like, that's not big. That's like.
Those are your contact prints.
Right. Those are like small. Those are the test prints. Like, let me show you a big print. And that's when I would take out the 40 by 60. So, yeah, you can print way bigger than you might expect. At least 24 by 36 with a high quality 24 megapixel file. Now that also means that if you take an SL2 file at 47, an M11 file, an M10R, an M10 Monochrom, think about how much larger you can print those, or you can print the same size and you can crop creatively.
There you go.
For me, the resolution isn't about a large print size. It's about the freedom to crop in post, especially, you know, when we talk about like 60 megapixels from the M11, because objectively, you'd be hard pressed. Let's say that you print an 11 by 14 print, and I print it from every camera on this table at all different resolutions from 24 to 60. You would not be able to tell the difference at that size.
Yeah.
You would either have to crop massively in or make it wall sized to see the difference.
Well said. Let's not get too stuck on it though. Let's keep going. That was well done.
Yeah.
And hopefully that makes sense. Next.
Right. 60 megapixels is just too much.
Wait a minute.
60 megapixels is just too much. Totally true. That's a waste. Don't buy it. No, of course that's not true. That's fiction. The reality is, just like we were just saying, resolution is a variable in print size, croppability, perspective correction ability.
Correction, yep.
Printing in different ratios or sharing images in different ratios. So, I mean, medium format cameras have been offering 100 plus megapixel, not what Leica's doing, but other companies that are great for years.
Yeah.
And that's fine. So, no, I think 60 megapixels on the M11 is just the beginning.
Ooh.
Give me 600 megapixels and then we'll talk.
600.
Next.
All right. An electronic shutter is not ideal for fast action.
That's a fact.
Fact.
Electronic shutter, and it's confusing because, you know, this massively large numbers, which means very, very, very fast because it's a fraction. So you can have 1/40,000th of a second electronic shutter versus a 4,000th of a second mechanical shutter. Surprisingly though, the mechanical shutter is going to actually stop action far better than the electronic shutter will, because the electronic shutter will have a readout where basically the top of the sensor and the bottom of the sensor, there's a delay between when those pixels are being read out. On a mechanical shutter, you have a visible, like an actual mechanical shutter that prevents that from happening and is freezing that instant. So I know it's counterintuitive, but using a slower mechanical shutter speed will freeze action better than a higher speed electronic shutter.
Well said.
But
there's a but.
you can use it to great effect for in those cases where you need to be absolutely dead silent, where you want to reduce vibration for a static subject, or you want to shoot a lens like a Noctilux wide open in daylight with a not very fast moving subject without a filter. So there is uses for it, but not fast action. Fact.
Well done.
Thank you.
What's next?
Okay. ISO 50 on the SO2 offers the best image quality and dynamic range.
Fiction. That's a pull. It's not a real ISO 50. That's what M11 is unique, because ISO 64 is truly ISO 64.
It's true base.
I have found SL2 sweet spots 200.
Yeah.
For me.
Yep.
ISO 200. Yeah, for best performance.
Absolutely.
What do you mean by pull?
They're not actually setting the gain of the sensor at ISO
flipping
50.
the highlights.
They're just like you're shooting at ISO 200 and just pulling data from it.
So you're actually
not ideal.
You're actually getting 1 to 2 stops less dynamic range at ISO 50 than you would be at ISO 200.
There you go.
Lower is not always better.
Next thing.
Unless you're on the M11, and then 64 really is phenomenally good.
Seriously, it's amazing. Well, you should look at David's M11 review if you want to see that.
Sure.
All right. Oh, this is for David.
Uh-oh.
Stopping down to f16 or f22 results in much sharper landscape images.
That is fiction.
No way.
Yes way. As I like to say, friends don't let friends shoot at f16.
Oh.
No. If I see, and I invariably do see people shooting at f16, I'll be like, no, 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 no. And I will correct that, because with not even the highest resolution, even at 24 megapixels, you should not be shooting at f16. F11 is going to be noticeably sharper than f16, and f22 is going to be a mushy mess. I get it. You want starbursts. Go look at my M11 review and see how insanely good the little starbursts are at f8. Because when the lens is sharp enough and the sensor sharp enough, you're getting that combination without having to stop down to f22. Just don't do it. Please, 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 for me, because just don't.
Don't do it for David.
Don't do it for me. I would say f8 is kind of a sweet spot for the M11. F8, 9.5 is good for the SL2. And let's say you're still, let's say a SL2S or an M10 or an M10P. Sure, F11's going to be fine.
There you go. What's next?
Okay. Silver anodized cameras are more durable than black paint.
Fact. I mean, we have proven that time and time again. If your primary concern when you're choosing the color of your M camera is how it shows wear in terms of scuffs and nicks underneath the actual finish of the camera, what are you looking for?
Is that lens there?
This one?
Yeah.
Silver anodized just is proven to be more durable in that respect. What are we showing here?
I'm going to show the lens.
Oh, well, Jose's got
to move the camera. Yeah.
Well, the camera, it's pretty close. It's like right there.
Yeah,
there,
it's like there's so much stuff.
Oh, my goodness. So picky.
All right.
One second.
He's getting there. He's doing a lot of things right now because we don't have Kirsten. So
that's right. That's right.
We don't have Enzo under the table today.
That's perfect. Okay.
There we go.
Great.
Very nice.
Now this is black anodized, but you
pay no attention to the particular lens because you can't get it anymore.
What lens? Right. So that's black anodized, and you can see along here. You can see that edge wear because even though this is anodized and not painted, there's a nickel plating underneath this, and it's just basically. When you get a nick, that black anodization comes off, and it's going to show wear. If you look at it's a silver 50 Summilux, there is invariably nicks on this lens because it has been used. In fact, so much so the red dot fell off, and yet you look at that and you can't see any wear or nicks because it's silver chrome on top of silver nickel plating. So they're invisible.
I'm just reading this hilarious comment. David and Josh only own plaid shirts.
Yes.
Apparently, that's fact. Yes. I'm pretty sure I've been seen wearing at least one solid color shirt, but we like plaid.
Yeah.
Let us express ourselves through plaid, okay? Jeez. What's next?
All right.
Oh, the hood is black chrome, not black paint.
What hood?
Someone asked if that hood, the lens hood I showed here.
Well, that's black anodized, but it's not black chrome like M10 monochrome is black.
Quite the same.
Oh, Leica terminology is confusing. Jose, what's next?
It is.
Okay. Where are we? You shouldn't charge your lithium batteries to 100% or store them fully charged.
I'm going to say that is fiction. Understand that your lithium batteries aren't going to last forever. Technically speaking, should you only charge them to 80%? Yeah, maybe they'll last a little bit longer. Personally, look, I charge my iPhone to 100%. I know that if you want to preserve your battery life, charge it to 80. Well, I like a fully charged battery on my phone so I can talk on it longer or, look at the news or whatever. Same goes for a camera. When I have batteries, I want to get 100% capacity so I can go out and get the most amount of pictures out of it. Whether it's going to last another 10% longer is irrelevant to me. Just understand that all batteries, whether it's in your phone, your laptop, the camera batteries, do degrade over time. They're going to lose capacity. But Leica is preserving some of that by using, and you'll probably notice this, it charges to 80% in about an hour, and it takes another hour to go from 80 to 100. So it's purposely slowing down the charge to preserve the life of the battery. But I have seen no ill effects from storing the batteries at 100%, and they generally do hold their charge, not like older, alkalines or lithium metal hydrides or whatever.
But to grab on something you said,
nickel metal hydrides, sorry.
They don't last forever.
No.
I try to cycle through my primary battery every 2.5 years with a fresh one, and relegate that previous one to backup. Because I like my main battery to be the best performing that it can be. And they simply do not last forever.
Yeah. And I'm not smart enough to do this, but other people are. And every time I see, I'm like, I'm going to do that. And then I never
do. I know what you're going to say.
Which is put a little sticker on the battery to say what date you put it into service.
Yeah, I do that.
Well, you're smarter than I am.
Well, some things.
Yeah. So,
yes, but let's go to the next one because we spent too much time on this one.
Sure.
All right. Leica gear is fragile and delicate and can be used in tough environments.
If that were true, if that were fact, there would be no Leica gear on this table because David Farkas had his hands on at least all this stuff.
All
at
of
least
these
once.
things, yes.
And this man is...
Yes.
Look, he uses the gear, I joke, but no, that is definitely fiction.
It's actually one of the things that I appreciate most about Leica camera gear, and that I think surprises most people, non-Leica people, when they see me out shooting in some of these conditions. And I don't baby the stuff at all, ever. Will it get, scuffed up lens shades? Sure. But you know what? I can just replace it. I think that, to me, being able to count on the gear, knowing that it's just going to work 100%. I have never had a camera fail due to inclement weather or, bumps and scrapes or whatever. I mean, I even dropped a 75 APO-SL.
And I've actually dropped I dropped a 50 APO-SL.
Yep.
And it just had a little dent.
Yeah,
it's still
it had
going
a
strong,
dent in the side.
Still going strong.
No problem. It was
I'm not
totally
encouraging you to drop your gear, by the way. But I would say, no, I don't think Leica gear is any more or less fragile than any other manufacturer making modern stuff. I think there are definitely some...
I think it's less fragile.
Yeah, there's some vintage pieces that may be a little finicky, but in the modern era, this stuff is built extremely well. If you've ever come into the store and seen our demo gear, it's missing a lot of paint and numbers and mounting dots, but it works really, really well. So,
and cameras like the SL2, the SL2S, the S camera, the SL lenses, the S lenses. I mean, they're weather sealed, they're durable, they're all metal construction, and I know certainly the first time that someone picks up, let's say, SL lens or an SL body, and they've never shot Leica before, they are, and even, I would say, even picking up an M11, they are always amazed. They're like, oh wow, that's a lot heavier than I was expecting. Because a lot of what they're used to shooting is plastic. It's disposable.
Yeah.
Leica stuff is really rugged and durable. So, yeah.
I think that sums that up well. Let's keep going.
All right.
And then I'm going to talk about this thing
that
I brought.
The QQ2 allows you to sync a flash at 1/4000th of a second.
Fact. That is the joy of a leaf shutter.
There you go.
X cameras and Q cameras have leaf shutters, meaning the shutter is in the lens and it opens like an aperture. So you can sync your flash at any shutter speed the camera offers using the mechanical shutter. Now I know the Q2 has electronic shutter, so not that. But mechanical shutter, 4th of a second, go for it.
Yeah.
I want to take a pause for a moment and show a cool thing.
Sure.
I'm going to try to do this more, like a little show and tell about cool used stuff that we take in that I really like and I really get excited about.
What do you got?
I have something really cool, something rare and pretty. So it's rare and pretty. Okay. Check it out. It's a box.
I love boxes.
There's a box.
Oh, it's just
I could have taken it out of the box, but I wanted to do like a little unboxing. All right, let's take a look at this. Now, anyone watching the show is familiar, well, hopefully, with the 90 APO-M. It's been around since the late 90s. We have one right here. Great, cool portrait lens. Overwhelmingly, the samples that you're going to see in your existence are going to be black. That's the lens they've been making for 23 years. Black anodized. In the early 2000s, Leica did a special variation of that lens, which I'm going to show you. They made, the actual production numbers are debatable. Somewhere between 500 and 1,000. 600 seems to be the conventionally understood amount. We're going to pull this one out of the case here. Take a look at this. This is Leica jewelry right here.
Leica jewelry.
This, let me get a close-up here, is a 90 APO Summicron. Same exact optics that you get in the one you can buy new today in silver chrome. Let me show you the front. Now, being silver chrome means the barrel is made of brass. Leica has plenty of precedent making brass-barreled lenses, but not often the big lenses like the 90 APO. Brass being heavier, this lens is a beast. It is as heavy as a Noctilux, maybe heavier. I don't have the scale with me. Gorgeous. This particular example is literally in mint condition. There is not a mark on it. I sent it off to the factory in Wetzlar to customer care to be 6-bit coded, overhauled top to bottom. I even kept the original mount in case somebody wanted to revert it back to original status. It has all of the original paperwork, original test certificate, even the original plastic bag with the serial number on it, which don't even do that anymore. This is extremely rare. In fact, I have been working at Leica Miami since 2010, and this is the only one that I have ever seen and been able to handle. I was so tempted to just keep it because it's so pretty and so lovely. And this would look amazing on a silver camera, but alas, it is my job to sell things. So
yes.
So I can come back to me, Jose.
Now what's interesting is
yes,
this is a bit of a narrow band of manufacture because it has the pre-deep red dot.
Yes, it has the orange colored red dot. I'm just cleaning up a finger.
And it has a silver box.
Correct. Yeah,
now, that is really interesting because normally the orange dot would be in a white box.
Yeah, it's a 396 serial number, so it's probably, relatively new.
I'm going to say, 2004 maybe?
Something like that.
Yeah.
They get a little weird with these because they didn't make them in order of the same order as the black ones. But regardless,
cool.
I love silver chrome lenses, and I love rare silver chrome lenses. We just got a couple in. This is my favorite of the bunch just because it's so heavy. Because again, you don't see a 50 Noctilux in silver chrome, 75 Summilux silver chrome. You don't see those lenses in brass because as you get so much larger.
There's requests to put it on the silver M11.
I don't really want to do that. No, I'm not going to do it because it's never been mounted to a camera in its current state.
We can just hold it up next to it.
So I'm not going to mount it because I'm going to let whoever buys this be the first person to use it should they so choose. But here, we can get a close up.
Say it's never been mounted?
Well, because I just had it 6-bit coded.
Oh, yeah.
So this has a brand new lens panel.
Yeah.
So no, I'm not going to mount it on a camera.
But it's a nice match.
Because it never has been. Again, the original mount is in the box, but...
Nice.
Anyway, I don't want to go on too long about it, but it is a beautiful, rare, dense piece of equipment. I am privileged to be able to experience it and to see it and have it in my office to stare at lovingly. And I know it'll go to a good home one day. So anyway, just another show and tell. I'm going to clean off all of my finger oils now.
All right. Jose, why don't we move on?
While I pack this up lovingly and carefully, Jose, please ask us another question or statement or whatever.
Or thingy.
Thingy.
All right. M cameras are only good for street photography.
Ooh. I'm going to say that is fiction. Because, for sure. I'm planning on taking an M11 along to my trip in Iceland because why not? I think it would be an incredible Northern Lights camera, and I want to put that to the test. So I fully intend to use it as a landscape camera. I think it's great for architecture, great for landscape photography, great for reportage. I don't think an M has to be pigeonholed into this is street photography. And more as time goes on, likewise, I don't think an SL2, for instance, needs to be only a landscape or a portrait camera or a professional camera. Because you know what? You can use an SL2 for street photography also. They're all these tools have become more and more interchangeable in terms of fitting into different workflows. They're just different approaches to get a similar result.
I'm going to sum it up to say, if you only use an M for street photography, you're missing out.
I like that.
Simple as that.
Yeah.
Okay. What is next?
Okay. Larger SD cards slow down camera startup time.
It's a fact. It's a sad fact. It's maybe less. It's less relevant with the newer the camera it is. So I remember on the M240, if you put a 128 or 256 gig card in there, like it took a minute to start up because it was looking and trying to read and make sure and verify that the card is good. If you put it in an SL2 and you use a 256 versus 64, it's negligible.
But
negligible.
there is a slight difference. Again, it's only startup time.
Yes.
So if the camera's already on, it doesn't make a difference.
Right.
Just to be clear.
Just the first time when you turn it on.
I have to sadly report that this lens will not be ours for much longer.
Oh.
Because Mark decided to make it his.
Okay.
The next owner of this lens, if you don't take good care of it, I'll know. I'll know, and I will be very sad.
And he has your address.
That is true. I'm gonna knock on your window. Can I see it? Is he okay? Like scheduled visits to check on my baby. So, because if you know me and you watch the show, I am obsessed with this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I love it, and I've been so excited. I get so excited every time something amazing, and even after years of doing this, I'm like a kid in a candy store. I was going to say about the startup time, if you ever come to the Leica store and it's a calm day, ask me to show you my startup timer thingy.
Oh my gosh,
it's, I'm not going to show it on the show. I don't have it with me anyway.
I'm going to call it a contraption.
Yeah, it is a contraption to measure startup times and autofocus times and stuff. It's pretty quirky.
But it is neat.
It is very neat.
It is neat. And accurate-ish.
Also, it's pretty good. Well, when you do it enough times,
right.
yeah, you can get a good data.
Yeah.
Next.
Okay. The M10 monochrome is still Leica's high ISO champion.
Ready? 3, 2, 1. Fact. We're such nerds.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a fact.
I'll say from my testing and your experience, the M10 monochrome above ISO 6400 especially is the best high ISO performance
Yep.
that exists. Obviously not color because it doesn't shoot color.
Nope.
For objective performance, it is unbelievable.
Yes. It is, in my testing, it's usable up to 32,000 ISO. That's a high number. That's a big number.
Yeah.
The Q2 monochrome, not super far behind. Q2 monochrome is more like 25,000, which that's nipping its heels of the M10 monochrome.
See, I'll go to 50,000 on the M10 monochrome for my stuff because a lot of what I do is like social media or smaller stuff.
But critical,
fine.
I'd say critical.
Okay, fair.
Critical, full resolution, 32,000. It's unmatched. And the M11, as good as the M11 is, I'm going to say it's more M10R level of performance, which is great because it's more pixels, but same.
We talked about this on the M11 show, so you can watch that.
So here, I'd say M11, you're looking at 12,500 to 16,000 being optimal for highest before you, let's say, get a loss in image quality. That just is, that's not even close to 32,000.
Yeah.
Because math. So the M10 monochrome remains a beast. And before you ask, because I'm not even looking at the comments, but I can feel the comments.
Yeah.
I feel them. I feel like M11 monochrome questions coming in.
Mm-hmm.
Refer to what Josh said.
As I said before, we do not speculate about what's coming next. We don't answer questions what's coming next.
But I can say
we don't know. We don't know.
But we can judge from history, and history says the last 3 generations of M monochrome cameras came between 2 and 3 years after the launch of their respective color cameras.
Right, and since the M11 came out last month, we've got some time. I see Mark has acknowledged publicly he got the 90, so thank you, Mark. We also have, I did add 2 other amazing silver lenses to the website recently. They're just under new arrivals for pre-owned. They're not photographed yet.
Yeah.
But I'll show those.
How did we not add that to the list?
Fact or fiction, David? Film is better than digital.
Better? We've already said better is a very dangerous word.
I think that's fiction.
I think it's fiction too.
No, it's fiction for sure.
In terms of absolute performance and flexibility, malleability, and let's use the M10 monochrome as an example. I would never have imagined that I could go out and shoot with a 90 millimeter lens at night at f8 and get crazy sharp pictures at 32,000 ISO.
Crazy.
When I was shooting film, and I shot a lot of film in my day, I mean, maybe 1,600, like maybe. And that was grain the size of golf balls. And there were guys shooting, Ilford Delta and whatever with massively high ISO, at least I thought, that don't even touch anything on this table. So in terms of low light, in terms of aperture and focal length flexibility, no contest. But there's a but. But in terms of nuance and feel and look as an art form, as an expression, film is still great. Yeah. And film is making a huge comeback because it's really hard to replicate the look of film using digital.
And the reality is that the experience of shooting film, not being able to see images, being limited to 36 exposures, all the stuff everybody knows.
Discipline.
It is discipline, and it is a different experience. So I don't think film is worse than digital in the sense of the enjoyment you can have.
Sure.
If we're just talking about measurable, scientifically objective performance, digital is better.
Right.
But That's okay.
I mean,
film is awesome.
Yeah, think like a reel-to-reel tape versus a uncompressed FLAC high audio, high fidelity audio file. Well, of course the the high fidelity audio file taken from the studio master is better objectively, but there is a enjoyment that you get from that analog physical media that is difficult to replicate with a digital process.
There we go.
Okay.
Next.
Okay. Let's do the next one. Leica is overpriced and not worth the money.
Totally facts. Why are you watching this? No, I'm kidding. I mean, overpriced is
how do you quantify that?
subjective, right? But I would say, harkening back to what I spoke about earlier, if we're talking about the cost of ownership, meaning how much it depreciates versus how much value you get out of it, I would say definitely not.
And
my totally unbiased opinion.
Right, and I'm going to add to this that a lot of people have held that that belief, especially ones that have never shot Leica.
True.
I also know that I have physically been standing next to people who went to the Leica factory and went on the tour of how they make all the cameras and lenses, and I keep hearing the same thing, which is, okay, I completely understand why they cost what they cost. Like when you
hand painting the numbers and stuff.
When you actually see what goes into making a single lens and the amount of precision work involved in creating a single lens, it is mind-bogglingly complex. So there's a reason they last so long. There's a reason they perform so well. There is a no-compromise approach at Leica where they don't have budget lines. Everything is the best they can make it be.
Yeah. So I would say fiction, but
it's up to you.
That is up to you.
Yeah.
Because we are biased, whether you like it or not. And yeah, life could be worse for Leica. It's a good time to be a Leica nerd because they are crushing it right now.
They really are.
What is next?
Okay. Leica cameras are not suitable for professional photographers.
Fiction.
I mean, I shoot professional landscape photography.
Jose shoots professionally. What do you have to say? Didn't you just shoot professionally like last week?
Yeah. SO2S. I mean, especially now with the M11 as well. I mean, no problem at all. Very intuitive, very easy to handle when you're out on the field. Very reliable, which is very important for professional photographers.
Mm-hmm.
And of course the quality and the build quality. So it's, completely fiction.
And reliable, right?
Very reliable, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and that's what a professional wants, is you want a top quality instrument that's rugged, that's durable, that's going to do what you need it to do when you need it to do it.
And a lot of the pros that I've been working with for a number of years, once they get the gear out of the way and they get the reliability stuff out of the way, it's delivering images to their clients that look different.
Yeah.
Right? Because there's no doubt a Leica look if you want it, right? You can just step down and process it in a way. But if you want the Leica look and you want to have images where someone who even maybe doesn't have a trained eye will look at it and go,
there's something different there. Yeah, exactly.
That's a big part of the Leica experience. So I would say that is fiction. Next.
Rangefinder focusing can be faster than autofocus.
That's a fact.
I've watched David shoot with a rangefinder.
That's a fact. because, and I demonstrate this a lot, so often I'm focusing before I ever even take the camera to my eye, which is not the case when I'm shooting with the SL2S. The SL2S has really fast autofocus. The SL lenses with their dual synchro drive motor, 20 millisecond from close focus to infinity. How can you be 20 millisecond? Well, it's 20 millisecond from the time you do this to the time you push the button and lock on. With an M, as I'm sitting it with it down here, hidden from view, I am manipulating the focus tab and estimating the distance. So if I know that my subject is 0.7 meters away, I'm moving the dial here. Jose probably wants to get a close-up of that.
Got it?
Yeah, you got it.
Right? That looks good.
Does it look
There
sharp?
we go.
Is it
Closer. Farther.
There we go.
Farther. You got it.
Okay, so if I go here to this side, I'm at 0.7 meters. If I go to this side, I'm at infinity. If I go in the middle, I'm at about 1.2 meters. And you can see that on the top, on the scale. Okay, so minimum distance, maximum distance, middle distance. Generally speaking, and you can come back to me, generally speaking, you know if something is this far in front of you or as far as you can see, because that's infinity and this is 0.7 meters. And 1.2 meters is, you know, a little further than that. So I can generally estimate where do I want to be. I dial it in, I lift it to my eye, and then very often I just lean a little bit forward or back and snap the picture. It's so fast and so intuitive, and it comes back to what we led off on the show, which is rangefinder's complicated, whatever. Once you get that muscle memory and that experience of understanding how a rangefinder works, it's extraordinarily fast, and you don't need a lot of light for it. Famously, Leica's always said that you could focus by the light of a single candle in a room, and it's true.
Yeah.
Because I actually did that one time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's
do not underestimate
fast.
what the rangefinder can do for you with some practice and some muscle memory. It's pretty darn impressive.
Yeah.
What's next? Well, Jose, we need to ask. Let me go to the list, David. I know we have to tackle next. Blue. Did we skip it? Oh, yeah, number 35. Well, that is the next one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh gosh. Okay.
Do it.
Oh.
Do it.
Oh, no.
Oh no. Here we go. We're diving in. Right into the deep end.
Sensors output better image quality than CMOS sensors.
Say it again.
CCD sensors output better image quality than CMOS sensors.
I'm going to say it. That's fiction.
People are going to be hurt. They're going to be yelling at us.
That's fiction. That's fiction. And I put it to the test. Not too recently anymore, but back in 2015 maybe? I did a test where I shot an M9 against an M240, so CCD versus CMOS, using the exact same lens, taking exactly the same pictures or as close as I could get, and processed them roughly equivalently, only using global adjustments in Lightroom, no brushes, no local adjustments. And keep in mind, this was like a really early version of Lightroom. It's a lot easier to match things now because there's actually tools to do that. Here, I was just flipping back and forth on a slow computer because, you know, technology. And I put them up in a survey form where you could actually vote and say, this one is CCD, this one's CMOS. And most people guessed incorrectly. I mean, it was actually greater than statistical probability that they actually guessed wrong, not correct. So
yeah, well, let me put it this way. If we're talking again about objective measurable performance,
yeah,
the very latest CCD camera that Leica ever made, which would be the ME and or the M9P, compared to any of Leica's CMOS cameras, but let's put it right up against the M11, better, just by the nature of the technology. But that doesn't mean CCDs are bad. No. Shooting an M9 versus shooting an M11, in a lot of ways, is analogous to shooting film versus digital. Different types of compromises in some sense, but what the CCD sensor has is less dynamic range, a higher level of color saturation off chip, meaning less malleable color, and higher contrast, et cetera, So it's more like shooting slide film.
Yes.
Plus, the M9 operationally is quite a bit slower than the M11, which is objectively worse, but subjectively maybe just what someone needs to express themselves creatively or to slow themselves down or whatever. So if the pricing trajectory in the last 5 years of M9s has shown me anything, it's that we can sit here and tell you all day long that CMOS sensors are better, but there's clearly an X factor, a non-tangible element.
I hear so many people talking and describing, they're like, oh, well, the M11 has very M9-like color.
Right, just buy an M9 if you want M9-like color.
I mean, a lot of this is how to work, and I have a whole nother article as well on Red.Forum about using presets to get that look that you want right off the bat for all your files on import.
Yeah.
And then you just adjust them in terms of exposure and, you know, shadow and highlights, and that's it.
Yeah.
But you can get 90% of the way there just using an import preset to emulate that CCD look. Because the reason I took that challenge on was kind of this fact or fiction thing, right? Everybody's saying, CCD, there's no way that a CMOS sensor can look like a CCD. And I was like, that sounds like a challenge.
For context, this was M240,
yes,
which replaced the M9 and was the first CMOS M.
Jose, you can pop up on the screen just so I can see where to find this if you want to go look for yourself. So on Red.Forum right here, under field tests, and you scroll down a bit, and here is CCD versus CMOS. That's part 3, part 2, and part 1. So part 1, you could go ahead and vote. If it loads, you can vote on each pair and say like, okay, image 1 is 1 or 2 is the from the M9, the CCD, and then part 2 was basically the different. Now it's single images, not head to head, and then identifying which is CMOS and which is CCD, which was even harder for most people when there wasn't a direct comparison. And then part 3 was just kind of a wrap up of which was which and how many people actually guessed correctly and incorrectly, which was kind of cool. And then going through, so it's a lot of statistical results here, but then also how to get from the out of camera look that you see here to just using a preset to get that CCD look out of a CMOS camera. So I highly recommend checking that out if you haven't seen it before. And likewise, we talked about the Monochrom performance, and you can check that out here to see what the M10 Monochrom can do.
Again, I don't want to. It's tricky because CCD versus CMOS isn't as relevant as it used to be because now the difference in the shooting experience of a CCD-M versus a CMOS-M is so different.
True.
So even me, I just had an M9P in the store the other day, playing with it and getting a feel for it. I was kind of like, I remember when they were current, and it took me back. And I could totally see myself taking out an M8 or an M9 and purposely...
Nostalgia?
Yeah, compromising my speed just to have a fun, different experience. Just like I do if I were going to shoot film or shoot with an S3 walking around the street.
Or a vintage lens.
Or a vintage lens. Yeah. It's the same mindset.
It's different, interesting, yeah.
Different execution, same mindset. So just because we're going on about, the new stuff is the best, like, I love the old stuff. I love the 35 Summilux Preaspheric on an M8.2. It's a very satisfying, enjoyable experience.
Yeah.
Like, that is super, super fun. A black paint M8.2 with the black Leica logo and a vintage 35 Summilux version 2 Preaspheric with a drop-in Series 7 UVIR filter and the 125R4 hood is like the best fun Sunday morning activity that Josh can have. So
nice.
I should mention also before the show is over, if you're local, tomorrow morning, Sunday morning, in the Design District in Miami Design District, there is an amazing car show called the Miami Concourse. Mm-hmm. I always see other people shooting Leica there. I will be there starting before sunrise with M11 and some other goodies to shoot. If you're around and you want to make some awesome car photos or people photos or whatever. I think it officially starts at 11. I'm gonna get there like 6:30.
Look for the guy with the fedora.
No, I might not wear the fedora when I shoot. I can't. It gets in the way of the Visiflex.
Okay.
The Visiflex takes the hat and it's terrible. Go find me on Harinki if you want to see the fedora. But if you're around, it is an awesome event. Just speaking about getting out and shooting, it is a super, super cool place. And you could use, I'm gonna probably bring a vintage lens and a modern lens and go to town. So
nice.
Yeah. Anyway, tangented, but super cool.
Yeah. Someone, Michael comments, the fault in my CCD comparison is I didn't compare straight out of camera for each camera. We talked about that just a little earlier.
Yeah.
But I also addressed that exact thing in my article. So if you want the full information and reasoning why, read the article because I cover that exact topic in detail.
Jose, you should ask the question everybody's asking. Like 2 people have asked now. What number is that, David?
Which
38.
One? Okay. Go ahead.
All right. Leica's made in Portugal lenses are worse than their German counterparts.
I'm going to let you answer that, Jose.
That is fiction.
Tell us why.
They're built exactly the same. The design is completely the same. There's no difference. Just that it says made in Portugal and made in Germany. But
yeah, Leica has a very, very new modern factory in Portugal. Mm-hmm. And they have German engineers who are stationed there who help with the manufacturing process, not just for the lenses that are made there, but there's sport optics and a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah, actually 100% of the sport optics, all of the super high quality binoculars, from Trinovids to Noctivids, the spotting scopes, all those high precision optics are made 100% in Portugal. Not a single one of those is made in Germany. And that factory has been there since, I think, the 1980s. Although they have a new facility in like 20, I forget, it was like 2016.
Yeah, I think it's actually newer than Lights Park.
It actually opened like 2 years before Lights Park or around the same time.
Right around the same, okay.
It's fully modern. And they have about 800 people, 600, 800 people work in Portugal. And those people have been with Leica for decades.
Yeah.
They're highly skilled artisans, just like in Germany.
If you pick up a pair of, sorry to interrupt you, but if you pick up a pair of a Leica Noctiluxes binocular, it's built amazing and the performance is wild. So yes, there's obviously an appeal to made in Germany. I get that. Although I think my German car was not made in Germany, but that's here nor there. But in the end, if I'm buying a Leica product, I'm buying a Leica product, and I'm expecting it to be built to the standards that Leica Camera AG adheres to, whether it's Portugal or Germany or Canada. Well, RIP, but
Well, someone asked, what about Canada versus Germany?
Well, I mean, all the F1 Noctiluxes remain in Canada.
Every single
one, and that's one of the most legendary, well-loved, and appreciating Leica lenses.
And most of the 75 Summiluxes were built there.
If only they could see the particular F1 that I have in Germany right now that I'm going to get back. It is probably the nicest F1, the nicest, newest, and most complete example of an F1.
Oh, with the slide-out shade?
It's, version 4, yes. Whenever I get that back, I'm going to put it on the show because it's going to be sweet. Anyway, so that is fiction. Thank you, Jose.
Yep.
Next.
All right. Leica can no longer replace corroded CCD sensors.
Fact.
Unfortunately, fact.
Yeah, that's probably one of the reasons, or that's definitely one of the reasons that M9s and their variants have gone up in value so much, because you cannot replace the sensor anymore. We don't know the exact bureaucratic nature of it, but essentially the supplier of the sensors stopped making them.
Which was TrueSense Imaging.
Yeah, and I get it. I mean, after
Kodak,
10 years of a camera that's not even remotely in production anymore, you're going to say, all right, that's the end of it.
Yeah.
Because they weren't making them, normally you wouldn't make that quantity of replacement sensors because the sensors are not supposed to fail. There was a design defect that they addressed and fixed at a certain point. But if you have an M9 or an M9 monochrome with the original CCD, you unfortunately cannot.
But Leica has an attractive upgrade program.
And they just redid the pricing on it. It's actually crazy good to go from an M9 or a digital M with the original CCD that has corrosion to an M10R or M10 monochrome.
Yeah.
You get like over $3,000 of value for that camera, which is amazing.
More than market value.
Yeah, but you can email us for questions about that. So
okay,
let's keep going. All right. Are we almost done? No, we have like 10 more, right?
There's a serious one. There's a big one here.
Okay.
Good on time though.
A dedicated monochrome camera will outperform a color camera converted to black and white.
That's true.
That is
That's fact. Yeah.
That is fact. In fact, the M246, which was a generation older than the M10, outperformed the M10 converted to black and white.
Yeah, that's right.
You always gain performance.
About 2 stops.
ISO, dynamic range, and detail by retaining all of the data versus throwing out a bunch of the color data to make an image black and white.
And because there's no Bayer filter or no color filter array, you have no interpolation and no variable pixel gain. So every pixel has identical gain applied to it rather than a color filtered CMOS sensor, because green doesn't need as much gain as red does, for instance. So you have variable noise levels between different color channels. On a monochrome sensor, every single pixel gets exactly the same gain applied and captures the full, I think it's 4,096 shades of gray at every single pixel with no interpolation. So it tends to hit above its weight class. And yes, I know everyone's asking, when are you going to compare an M10 monochrome to an M11?
It's going to happen.
I will.
We've been busy.
I promise.
We're doing stuff. Okay. If you try to get me on the phone, you know that.
For sure.
But we're having a good time, so it's all good. Like I said, Leica is crushing it right now. I mean, SL2, SL2S, Q2 monochrome, M11, S3.
With the S3, they just reintroduced the
trade-in program or the trade-up program for like a crazy bonus amount is back.
I'll have that on Red Dot Forum shortly.
Coming up. So it's like there's a lot of stuff going on right now in the world of Leica. Sweet.
Yeah.
Could be worse.
Keep going.
Okay, we're almost there. I need to put tape all over my cue so I don't get dust on the sensor.
This statement comes from my lot of experience with customer cameras. I see Qs and Q2s and Ms and all these cameras with some kind of variant of tape, gaffer tape, electrical tape, whatever, covering any orifice on the camera in some attempt to keep dust from getting on the sensor. The reality is the damage you're doing to your camera's exterior is far beyond what a couple of quick clone stamp clicks in Lightroom are on a file that has a couple of dust specks. Because what happens is the adhesive on the tape, regardless if it's gaffer tape or electrical tape or whatever, reacts with the finish, and it is impossible to completely make it look like it was never there. Also, what happens is where the edge of the tape is, as it slowly starts to curl up over time, even imperceptibly so, little bits of dust and grit get caught around the edges of where it's still sticky. And then as you're using the camera and touching the tape and rubbing it, it's acting like sandpaper on the camera body. And it's needlessly damaging the camera for no real meaningful material benefit.
I would say if you're looking to protect the camera, use a dedicated half case for it. It's going to be a lot safer than taping it up.
Yeah, I mean, it's just not worth it.
No.
Do not put tape on your Leicas. The exception I would say is if you are in a very high risk environment and you want to tape up the Leica logos, I would do that on any camera, tape up any branding.
Yeah.
Because then the risk of damaging the camera slightly versus getting it stolen, okay, I'll take the...
But remove the tape. Don't just leave it on.
Don't leave it on. Do not leave it on. But we're just talking about...
Don't use electrical tape because that stuff is the worst. Use black gaff tape if you must.
Correct.
If you must.
What's next?
There was a question here.
Yes.
Where is it? Replaced CCD sensors will never corrode. Fact or fiction?
Fact. I mean, never is a strong word, but they're redesigned sensors do not have the same problem. But I guess everything eventually breaks down into its components in 1,000 years. But no, not for the life of the camera.
Now that's there is a caveat there because the very earliest cameras that were sent in for CCD replacement were replaced with the original sensors before the redesign. So some of those cameras will corrode. The redesigned sensor with the new cover glass formulation will not corrode. So there's kind of a gray area in between.
Right. If you want to make sure that if you had the sensor replaced, it was replaced with the updated corrosion-proof version.
Right.
Which will not. I've never seen one show corrosion again, and I've seen a lot of these come through. So
yes, it's been years now.
Yeah. What's next, Jose?
Okay. Faster aperture Leica lenses are always sharper.
Fiction. In my days of shooting other brands years ago, that was the case. The faster the aperture of the lens, automatically it was the better version of it, better series.
The pro lens.
In the world of Leica,
not true.
Sometimes, but not always. That is not the metric you need to use for determining the sharpest performance, if we're talking about sharpness as the metric here.
You want to give a specific example?
Sure. Great example is 90 millimeter. You have the 90 APO F2
this one
versus the 90 macro F4. 90 macro F4 is way sharper. Does that mean it's better? Well, that's for you to decide. But if you want to tell me that better equals sharper, crushes it. 50 is a great example. 50 APO F2,
yep,
sharper than the 51.4.
And the Noctilux.
51.4, sharper than the 50.95 Noctilux.
Yep.
Or the 1.2 Noctilux. So no, it's not always the case.
But I can give you a reverse example of that.
Sure.
28 millimeter. The 28 Summilux, the 1.4M, is sharper than the 28 Summicron, F2, which in turn is sharper than the 28 Elmars, 2.8. But it has nothing to do with maximum aperture because it doesn't hold true to every focal length.
Correct.
And there's no magical formula. It's just experience. And we, at least when we've done these episodes of covering specific focal lengths or wide angle or telephoto, we do try to disseminate sort of performance metrics and give you that information. Yeah. We will do a 28 episode sometime, but that's the short version, right? So yes, 50 doesn't hold true. 90 doesn't hold true. 28, yes, it's true. So I'm going to say also it's fiction, but sometimes it's not. But not for that same reason.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right. It's not designed that way. So that was good.
Yeah.
Good question or good thingy.
Yeah. It's a good thing.
What's next? What's next?
Okay.
Jeez.
All Leica Apple lenses are the best of their respective focal length.
Say that again.
All Leica Apple lenses are the best of their respective focal length.
That's fiction in M, fact in SL. 90 APO, as we just said, is not the best.
Right.
90, 75 APO is not the best 75. That's really the only two because there's the 135 is the only 135, et cetera, et cetera. So again, just like aperture.
But it is true for the 35.
And the 50.
And the 50, right.
APO is not an automatic designator of the best performance. It's just simply describing one of the lens's design characteristics.
Correct.
We'll leave it at that. Next.
All right. A lens needs to be 6-bit coded for a digital M to work properly.
Fiction. You can use a non-6-bit lens on any digital M. If you don't manually assign the lens profile and camera, it's not going to be tagged in the camera file metadata.
Say unknown lens.
It'll say unknown, and also you may lose out, or you may have a little bit more color vignetting on some wider angles because there is some in-camera correction.
Yeah, they call it in-camera shading correction.
Correct, but you can use any M lens you want that will mount, 6-bit coded or not.
And I think it actually matters less on the M11 in my experience, because the ultra-thin cover glass of the M11 and the BSI, backside illuminated sensor, with the very shallow pixel well depth. I've seen lenses that I've used on other M bodies, they just have less vignetting on the M11.
Yeah, there is no, the reality is
if you 6-bit code or not.
If you have a Lightroom catalog full of images, it's really nice to be able to see what you shot stuff with and sort it. So if you're using a non-6-bit lens, you should either get it 6-bit coded if it can be, just because the cost of that service goes up every year, or manually set the lens profile in the camera. Next.
All right. Even without image stabilization, M's can be shot at very slow shutter speeds.
Fact.
Yeah, fact.
This is all you, bro.
Fact. There's not a lot. Well, in the time of DSLRs and before that, film SLRs and M cameras always had the reputation of being able to handhold slower because there's no mirror bounce and the shutter is extremely well damped in the M bodies. That holds true today. And in fact, every generation from the M9 to the M240, from the M240 to the M10, the M10 to the M11.
Oh, the last question. I almost forgot to. Sorry.
Yes, it will.
I almost forgot to talk about that.
But you can't phrase it as a question. You have to do it as a statement.
No, it's okay. Sorry. Keep going.
And because it's such a dense body in such a small space, yes, you can handhold it slower, even without image stabilization. And you don't have huge honking lenses hanging off the front where you're being shaky trying to hold it. So you can really hold an M very steady because its center of gravity is basically the camera itself, not in front of it. So density of the camera, lack of vibration of the shutter, compact size, all lead to being able to handhold the M slower than you think you should.
Yeah.
And on the M11, if you use electronic shutter,
we talked about that in the last show.
There's no vibration at all.
My point being, you should look at his review because there's a material example of that.
There is.
Photographically.
Yes.
Now, I need to mention something that we got asked on both M11 episodes, and I didn't know because I didn't
phrase it as a statement?
That's okay. I didn't have the lens to test, so thank you, Mike, for loaning me yours. The 50mm dual range Summicron, which is a vintage lens that has a cool close-up functionality. It has 2 focus ranges, thus the term dual range. This lens, which looks like this, in its stock form, meaning unmodified as the way it came from the factory, will not mount or function properly on any digital M. It only works on analog. You have no access to the close-up range. It just doesn't work. And for that reason, the dual ranges have always been less expensive in general than their non-dual range counterpart from the same era, which is optically the same. The 50 Summicron Rigid version 2, which is phenomenal. Well, I'm about to make dual ranges worth a lot more money because what I have discovered, based on the questions very logically asked by our viewers for the last 2 shows, is the 50 dual range Summicron works exactly on an M11 like it does on an analog body. You can mount it. You can use close-up mode, works with the goggles. You can use the goggles with the rangefinder. You do not need to use live view at all.
Nice.
The performance is shockingly good for a lens from the 1950s. It is a pleasure. I'll put it on here right now.
You know who actually has a lot of photos of this? In their M11 review is Jono Slack, because he uses the dual range.
All right, so here is a 50. Let me get the close up of this.
There you go.
50 dual range.
It looks nice.
Summicron on the M11. In this case, we're in the regular focusing mode. But if I bring it up to, it's hard to do this backwards. Bring it up to the macro setting. Boom. Got the goggles on there. And again, this works with the rangefinder. Obviously, it's easier with live view, but you can focus with the close-up mode with the dual range Summicron on the M11 with the rangefinder perfectly. It is the coolest thing ever. Plus, look how awesome this looks. It's like, oh, that is so cool.
That's so funny though, because there is no frame illumination window.
Of course, this middle part is a little bit redundant, but so what? So if you have the chance to pick up the dual range before the prices go up 20% in the next couple of months, do it now because the performance is fantastic. It looks awesome. It renders awesome. Yeah, really, 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 really cool. So thank you, Mark, for reminding me, and thank you, Mike, and everyone. When I talked about it, I got a lot of people that had offered to loan me theirs. I really appreciate that. We are grateful for that because now I can show this to the world.
And we know it works.
And we know that it works.
And now you do too.
That's right.
All right, Jose, I feel like we're really narrowing
We're getting super close to the
We're getting really close.
All right, let's keep going. My rangefinder requires regular maintenance.
Regular maintenance?
Regular maintenance.
Fiction.
Fiction. Is it maintenance free for life? Nah, probably not. If, it's a mechanical device. If you knock it really hard or it gets vibrated a lot, you may need to have it adjusted. As a matter of course, do you need to send it in every year or 2 years or whatever for regular rangefinder maintenance? No, that's fiction. They last for a very long time if, you take proper care of it. Yeah. If you're knocking it around and flying in, bush planes in the outback, maybe you do need to get it calibrated more often. But generally, you can easily test this. You do a rangefinder focusing test and then focus with live view and see if they match.
There we go.
Which is what we do.
Yeah. Sweet. Good questions. Keep going. We're almost there, aren't we?
I feel like we are, yeah.
The timing is good. We're
like honing in.
All digital sensors will accumulate dust even if you never change lenses.
Fact. Mm-hmm. Sensor dust
is a fact of life.
Is part of digital photography. You cannot escape it no matter how careful you are. I am sorry. A blower bulb, an eye lead, gel stick, and just common sense and some Lightroom it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay. I promise.
It just promises you.
It just happens. You just cannot escape it. You drive your car gets dirty. You leave the car in the garage, still it somehow manages to get dirty. So not as dirty. Okay, fine. So don't freak out. Just learn how to clean your sensors with a blower bulb.
Yes.
Learn what to look for to know when your sensor needs to be cleaned. And when it's not quite there yet, learn how to use the, what do they call it? The clone stamp tool in Lightroom?
It's the
dust spot removal. Spot removal. That's what they call it.
Spot removal.
In Lightroom to clear out little dust spots. If you don't know how to do the Lightroom thing, sign up for an hour with John Latimer on our website, and he will teach you how to do it, and it will be worth it. So, anyway, that was a subtle advertisement for John.
Yeah, a little subtle. Okay.
Next.
Okay. The 35 APO-M is the sharpest lens Leica makes.
Fiction.
I know that's shocking, right? They expected us to say fact.
Oh. Burns. It is the sharpest M lens.
True. That's
but
fact.
It's not.
But it's not the sharpest Leica lens.
Which one would that be, Mr. Farkas?
I would say that is the 35 APO SL, which we talked about previously. But yes, the APO SL Summicrons are the sharpest in their focal lengths across the entire Leica range. Fact. We talked about that already. These, not just sharper and higher resolving, but also focus is closer, weather sealed, and autofocus, and a good amount less expensive than an M lens.
And available, and on the SL. Now, of course, this doesn't work on an M, so we're not. No. That's why I said the 35 APO-M is the sharpest M lens. But if we're just looking at the product portfolio as a whole,
and what is fascinating is size-wise,
right?
It is. Look, the M lens is a lot smaller than the SL lens. That is true. But in terms of raw performance,
that's it. You ask what the best is?
We just told you.
The APO SL primes
are the best.
Best
28.
I'm beating a dead horse at this point, but they are just that good.
Best 28.
28 SL.
Best 35.
35 SL. Okay.
Best 50.
Yeah, they get it. Yes. Well, that leads us to the most fun one on this whole list, right, Jose?
I don't even know what's
I know
next.
what it is.
It's all a surprise to me.
Leica's not making nearly enough 35 APO-M lenses.
Fact.
Leica is not making nearly enough 35 APO-Ms. That is a fact.
That is a sad fact.
The source of great frustration
And consternation, I would say.
and consternation amongst everyone in this room and everyone who calls us.
Yeah.
We don't know why. We don't know if it's going to change. That's out of our hands. That's in the hands of the folks over in Germany.
We want it to change.
Yeah,
I want everyone to have an Apple.
when we have a whole show about just that lens. So if you want to learn about it, how it compares to the FLE and all these other things, watch that show. But the long and short of it is the demand has dramatically exceeded the supply, and wait times are extremely long, and it's frustrating because we love that lens, but at least with us, it's free to get on a list. It can't hurt.
Yeah.
You just gotta cross your fingers and hope Leica finds a way to make more. So that is a fact. There is not even close to enough.
Yeah.
Tear. I'm sad. It's very irritating. Like, why? Why can't we just get more? Oh well. Like, if anyone from Leica is watching this, please make more. All right.
So I'm just been glancing over at the comments. Yeah. I just saw a comment come in from Mark that the CL is the ugly stepchild of this channel.
What? No, it's not.
No, it is not.
We have an entire episode about it.
First of all, we have an entire episode on the CL. Secondly, we did a Leica Underdogs episode where I enthusiastically promote the CL because I personally use the CL.
Yeah, I purposely told him not to bring the CL because we talk about it so much that I was like, let's not talk about the CL.
So listen.
Yeah.
Go check out our other videos.
Yeah, we've got that petition. Yes.
It won't
matter. It wouldn't make a difference.
Believe me, we have petitioned.
We have tried
a lot
valiantly.
Okay, so
is that the end of our list, Jose?
Yep.
All right, so I guess we're gonna go a few minutes.
Yeah, let's go through the comments.
Well, Jose is good at that. He can scroll through the comments.
Sure.
I have one here that came in very recently.
Okay, tell us.
Okay, fact or fiction? The wear marks on aperture blades of a vintage M lens is a sign that it requires a CLA immediately.
Fiction. No. I mean, you'll get oil sometimes. Even that's not a big deal because oil can migrate from the focusing mechanism to the aperture blades. But no. If they're bent, yes. If they appear to be damaged, meaning that their shape is not correct, then yes. But just wear. I don't know if this lens has it on there. Yeah, I mean, I have a 35 Summicron Bokeh King right here. You won't be. There's no way I could show this on the close-up, but I can see the aperture blades in the middle are starting to get some wear. That just means it's been used.
They're metal. I mean, metal on metal.
It's fine. I mean, I've seen stuff really, really worn and it works just fine. So, no.
Yeah.
That is fiction.
What else?
What else we got?
Is the use of the new VisiFlex the only way to help glass wearers use various lenses?
You can use diopter correction lenses on the M11 or the M10 where they thread onto the viewfinder of the camera and correct for less than perfect eyesight. We talked about that way back, I think in our first or second show.
And yes, and a more recent M episode. But what's nice also about the VisiFlex though is that it has an adjustable diopter. So if you have your glasses on or you don't have them on, you can adjust as
What I'll
needed.
say is if your eyesight is not perfect, but you really want to shoot an M11, you will have a much higher success rate of in-focus images with the VisiFlex 2.
Absolutely.
If you're willing to go to an SL2 or SL2S, that will increase your focus rate even more.
Yeah.
But I understand not everybody wants to do that, so that's okay.
Right.
Fact or fiction? Is it better to send your gear to Wetzlar or to New Jersey when it comes to repairs? Or...
Oh, that's a good one. That is, it depends.
Depends what the item is.
It depends on the item. Some items they cannot service in the United States or they can't do as comprehensively.
Yeah, they may not have the tooling for it.
Correct. Most, like the Bokeh King, for example, is going to go to Germany. Because they can't service it in the United States. Yeah, I don't really have a straight answer on that because it just does like S cameras. Okay, I send you to Germany.
Right. SL repairs, S repairs.
But not all of them because they're always improving what they can do in the US.
That's true.
The people who work in customer care in the United States, they have they've been revamping their team for the past couple of years. The new head of customer care, Janine, is amazing.
And they have a state-of-the-art clean room.
Yeah, they do a really good job. So I don't have some issue with Leica USA customer care. They're incredible and they do amazing work and they genuinely care about doing a good job. They're not just people unscrewing and screwing
I mean,
counters.
that's the same of Germany. We've toured the customer care in Germany, and they are top notch.
The challenge with Germany is shipping directly there requires customs paperwork and yada, yada, yada. And it's a lot more work. So
now I will say, one of the coolest things is when we went to the customer care center in Germany, they have a room it's actually about the size of our...
they don't know how big our studio is. It's tiny.
Let them guess. Okay. It's about the size of our studio.
Okay.
And along each wall, they have all of these original vintage tool and die machines, all with little plaques that say, what year they were brought into service.
Yeah.
And if they don't stock a certain part for a vintage camera or lens, they can machine it.
To a point.
To a point. We saw them actually doing a full-on, to every single component, doing a full rebuild on an M3.
I just had an M3 single stroke come back from Wetzlar where it was CL8. It's very expensive. It takes months because they do the best job in the world. So
and they manufacture parts by hand.
Where the piece is going to go is just going to be determined by what it is. I have sent hundreds or maybe thousands of pieces in at this point, and it is case by case. I don't just blanketly. Some stuff goes to DAG, YYE, Golden Touch. Red Dot Repair out in the Pacific Northwest, of Leica USA and Leica Germany. So it does, just like everything else on this show, it
depends.
It does depend.
All right, Jose?
But let me just say one last thing, which is, if you're in the US, you start with Leica USA customer care, you reach out to them, and you go from there.
Sure. Because they will be able to tell you where to go.
Yes.
Josh, and just to clear things up, we've had a couple of questions regarding the VisiFlex 2, the new one. Working or not on the M10?
Not yet.
As of right now, February 19, 2022, the VisiFlex 2 does not work on the Leica M10, M10P, M10R, M10 Monochrom, M10D, or anything else.
Leica has said there will be firmware by sometime in March timeframe.
If that's true, which we don't really know, they've only said it. And we also do not know how it's going to work because the M10 is not designed to output the full resolution of what the VisiFlex 2 can provide you. So it's either going to be cropped or down-res somehow, or there's going to be black line. We don't know.
But we will tell you when we find out.
We know. So don't buy a VisiFlex 2 today thinking it's going to be magic on your M10, because what you may find is the benefit of having GPS from the original VisiFlex 020 outweighs whatever nominal benefit there may be on the VisiFlex 2. Maybe not. We don't know. I'm not going to draw conclusions yet. I'm just going to tell you what we know so far.
Okay.
I feel like we have really covered a lot of ground. This was a fun. What did you guys think of this show? I'm curious because it's not as much Q&A, although we got a lot of questions or a lot of fact or fiction statements ahead of time.
We weren't sure that we'd be able to get through all of them.
Yeah, which we got.
So one more.
Oh, okay. What do you got?
I like this one. Well, it's not. Yeah. Okay. 75 Noctilux-M or 90 Summilux-M.
They're very comparable.
They're close. I prefer the 75 Noctilux because it has a little bit nicer bokeh in terms of the way the Noctilux renders, where the 90 Summilux looks more Summilux-y. The 90 has better compression. It's actually quite significant. For portrait work, I prefer the 90. For my car stuff, I prefer the 75 because 75 is a focal length I can carry around all day and use for a lot of different things. Where if I bring a 90 with me, I'm probably going to have a 50 to augment it because it's hard to shoot all day with a 90. But those two lenses are very, very good. They're both the sharpest in their respective focal lengths within the line of M lenses.
And among the top tier of
If your goal is maximum compression,
90.
And minimum depth of field, because even though the 90 is a 1.5, it still has slightly less depth of field than the 75 at 1.25.
Yep.
Get a 90. If your goal is the most distinct bokeh and the most Noctilux-like rendering and also the most flexibility, 75. Noctilux, I mean.
Agree.
Okay.
I think people are liking this concept.
Yeah, we like doing these kinds of stuff. I don't know what we're going to do next. Probably something more technical again. Maybe M11 Part 3, just because I want to torment David that much more. We have a ton of ideas we want to do. A lot of it's constrained by the time we have to prepare, if it's something really elaborate. But there's so much stuff we're going to be doing this year. It's exciting.
Stay tuned.
For sure. Stay tuned. Yeah, we hope so.
Didn't we miss anything else, Jose?
I don't think so.
Nope.
I can't read that fast.
I think we did good. I feel like we really covered a lot of ground, and I'm grateful for everybody who submitted stuff ahead of time and asked stuff during the chat.
Big help.
We had fun.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Sign us off, David.
And now I have to go pack.
That's right.
Yeah. Whew. Hard decisions, right?
Remember, if you live in Miami and you want to take pictures of sweet cars at sunrise, come hang out with me. Miami Design District Concourse tomorrow. Be there. Or don't be there.
You want to give the date since they may not know when
February 20th.
20th, yeah.
February 20th,
Yeah.
2022, in the city of Miami, in Florida, in America,
Not Ohio.
planet Earth.
Miami,
Yes.
Ohio, yes.
Not Miami of Ohio, no.
Miami of Florida.
That's right.
All right. Well, this was a lot of fun, actually.
Yeah.
I like this. And I feel like there's so much more out there that we can certainly cover. We will be coming back to you with another wonderful, exciting episode of Red Dot Forum Camera Talk. As always, big thanks to Josh. Big thanks to Jose. Kirsten and Peter are off today. And Enzo, the dog, as you know.
Getting a bath.
It's getting a bath.
Poor thing.
Takes a long time.
Poor guy.
He's at the doggy spa. But the three of us did it. And with your help and so many great comments, we're going to read through some of these after the show ends. And certainly if you have any questions that you think maybe, you either agree, disagree with what we said, drop it in the comments when the video goes back into archive, and it'll be up here. You can watch it whenever you want in review, and we will answer comments as they come in. So thanks, guys. Be sure to subscribe to Red Dot Forum YouTube channel and click the notification bell so you know when we post new content like this or others. And be sure to check out red.forum.com for Leica news, reviews, tech articles, comparisons, all the stuff we talked about here. You can find a lot of those resources on the website. And be sure to check out all of our previous videos if you haven't, because we have, what did we think, like 80-something hours of
More than any human being should be subjected to,
No.
like David and Josh.
Right. But if somehow, like, you need to binge something for a couple weeks,
Yes.
we got you.
Yeah.
So
Not
we will be
sure
back.
next week.
Do we know when we're coming back?
Let me look at the old calendar
So asking if we're
here.
gonna wear plaid shirts again.
Oh, we always
wear plaid shirts.
You're never getting rid of the plaid.
Yeah, we always wear plaid. It's just
Next show, well, I don't think we have it on the books yet, actually. Because you have Iceland.
Sometime in March, maybe.
Yeah, we haven't done the March schedule yet, so stay tuned. I mean, if you subscribe, you'll know when we're going to go live because we'll post it on the channel.
And people are saying hit the like button. Sure.
Yeah,
Give us a like.
please hit the
because
like button.
Yeah,
So-
we like that.
Stay tuned to find out when we're back.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
We don't actually know yet because you have some travels coming up and
I do. Certainly a lot more travel coming up, but we'll...
couple of weeks.
We will be back.
We'll be back. We promise.
We promise. And thanks again, guys. We appreciate it. We had fun doing this, as we always do. And we will see you in the future.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.